Hello, friends. I'm not talking to you from space. I'm just wearing this fancy headset with this fancy microphone so that I can move around a lot more easily. I keep getting tangled in this really fancy microphone. Hopefully this sounds okay. We'll try it out. We have 3 books. Okay, 2 books in a chapter. We have Honey, I Love, and that comma is very important. I'm a big fan of commas. We have Olivia saves the circus. And we have the next chapter, almost the last chapter of the Boxcar Children. Look how much we've read together. That's a lot of book. You should be proud of yourselves. You're doing very well. Here we go. Settle in. I will settle in my squeaky chair. And let's read. Honey, I Love. Words by Eloise Greenfield and pictures by Spivey Gilchrist. Honey, I love. I love. I love a lot of things, a whole lot of things, like my cousin comes to visit, and you know he's from the South because every word he says just kind of slides out of his mouth. I like the way he whistles, and I like the way he walks, but honey, let me tell you that I love the way he walks. I love the way my cousin talks. There's that comma after honey. Did you hear me pause? I said, but honey, comma, pause, let me tell you that I love the way he talks. I love the way my cousin talks, and the day is hot and sticky, and the sun sticks to my skin. Mr. Davis turns the hose on. Everybody jumps right in. The water stings my stomach, and I feel so nice and cool. There's that comma. Honey, let me tell you that I love a flying pool. I love to feel a flying pool, and Renee comes out to play and brings her doll without a dress. I make a dress with paper, and that doll sure looks a mess. We laugh so loud and long and hard, the doll falls to the ground. Honey, let me tell you that I love the laughing sound. I love to make the laughing sound, and my uncle's car is crowded and there's lots of food to eat. We're going down to the country where the church folks like to meet. I'm looking out the window and the cows and the trees outside. Honey, let me tell you that I love to take a ride. I love to take a family ride, and my mama's on the sofa sewing buttons on my coat. I go and sit beside her. I'm through playing with my boat. I hold her arm and kiss it because it feels so soft and warm. Honey, let me tell you that I love my mama's arm. I love to kiss my mama's arm, and it's not so late at night, but I'm still lying in my bed. I guess I need my rest. At least that's what my mama said. She told me not to cry because she don't want to hear a peep. Honey, let me tell you, I don't love to go to sleep. I do not love to go to sleep. But I love a lot of things, a whole lot of things. And honey, I love me too. And I love you too. And I hope you love you too. And I hope you know I love you too. Next, Olivia saves the circus. Words and pictures by Ian Falconer. There's Olivia getting into her trouble again. And there's her cat. And her cat. Olivia saves the circus. Before school, Olivia likes to make pancakes for her new little brother, William. and her old little brother Ian. This is a big help to her mother. Look at that mess Olivia made. And she's just walking away. Clean that up, Olivia. After a nice breakfast, it's time to get dressed. Olivia has to wear this really boring uniform. Of course, you can always accessorize. Beep, beep, coming through. Today, it's Olivia's turn to tell the class about her vacation. Olivia always blossoms in front of an audience. What do you think she's going to tell her story about for her vacation? I see a big striped tent, and there's a flag with the word CIRCUS. Circus. I think she's going to tell a story about a circus. One day my mother took Ian and me to the circus, she begins. William couldn't come because he still has to nap. But when we got there, all the circus people were out sick with ear infections. Luckily, I knew how to do everything. I was Olivia the tattooed lady. I drew pictures on with marker. Then I was Olivia the lion tamer. Lion roars at her, and then she roars right back. Olivia the tightrope walker. And I walked on stilts, and juggled, and was Olivia the cloud, and rode a tricycle. Oh, I said that wrong. A unicycle. It's called a unicycle because it has one wheel. Unicycle. One una. Tricycle has three. I was the flying Olivia. Bounces on the trampoline. Then she lands back on the trampoline. Oof. And for the grand finale, Madame Olivia and her trained dogs. They weren't very trained. And that's how I saved the circus, and now I am famous. Then one time my dad took me sailing. The end. Her teacher doesn't look very impressed with that story. Was that true? Olivia's teacher asks. Pretty true, says Olivia. All true? Pretty all true. Are you sure, Olivia? To the best of my recollection. Gracefully, Olivia heads home. How was school today, darling? Olivia's mother asks as usual. Fine, says Olivia. What did you do? Asks her mother. Nothing. It's bedtime, but of course Olivia's not at all sleepy. Good night, says her mother. Good night, Bobby, says Olivia. Close your eyes. They are closed. Then go to sleep. I am asleep. And remember, no jumping. Okay, Bobby. Oh, she's jumping. Olivia, I said no jumping. Who do you think you are? Queen of the trampoline? Baby? 'Cause she was. The end. I love Olivia. She's a little naughty, though, isn't she? Boxcar Children. Last time we read chapter 10 when Henry won that big race. Now we are on chapter 11. XI 11. The doctor takes a hand. Oh no, it looks like someone's not feeling well. The days went by happily for the Boxcar Children. They found more treasures in the dump, and Henry worked every day for Dr. Moore. One noon, Henry came home with some new stockings for Benny. Benny was very happy about them and made everyone admire them. And when Jessie looked at the new stockings, she had a happy thought. She carefully washed Benny's old stockings and hung them up to dry. That afternoon, she and Violet sat down with the work bag between them to make a bear for Benny. You must make a tail too, Jessie, begged Benny, watching her put on the arms and legs and head. Bears don't have tails, said Jessie. Your old bear didn't have a tail. But this bear must have a tail, replied Benny, knowing that Jessie would put on 2 tails if he asked her to. What kind of tail? Asked Jessie at last. Long and thin, said Benny happily, so I can pull it. Benny, cried Jessie, laughing. But she made a tail, long and thin, just as Benny had ordered. What's his name, Jessie? Asked Benny, when at last the bear was handed over to him. I haven't thought about a name, replied Jessie. Why don't you think up a nice name for him? Well, you made him out of my old stockings. Let's name him Stockings. All right, Stockings it is, agreed Jessie, trying not to laugh. And from that day on, the bear's name was Stockings as long as he lived. And he lived to be a very old bear indeed. One afternoon, Jessie saw how long Benny's hair was getting, and she cut it with Violet's scissors. Benny stood quietly while she did it. But while his sisters were getting supper, he said to himself, Jessie cut my hair. I'll get Violet's scissors and cut Watch's hair. He will look better. He found Violet's scissors and made Watch lie down on his side. Then he began to cut the hair off. Look at Benny cutting Watch's hair. Benny said, Good dog, Watch. You are Jessie's dog, and so I will cut a J in your hair. Hold still now. Watch lay still, and Benny began to cut a J. It was not a very good J, but it looked a little like one. Soon Benny had cut off all the hair on one side, with a J in the middle. He stood admiring his work, and just then Jessie came to see what he was doing. Benny, she cried, what are you doing? Then she began to laugh. Oh, Violet, come and see, she called. Watch looks so funny. Jessie laughed and laughed until she almost cried. Violet laughed until she did cry. Then she could not stop crying. She cried and cried. At last Jessie made up her mind that Violet was really sick. You must go to bed, Violet, she said. She helped her carefully into the boxcar and put pine needles all around her and under her. Then she wet a handkerchief in the cold water of the brook and laid it on her little sister's hot head. I wish Henry would come home, said Jessie. What shall we do? When Henry came at last, he looked at Violet and said that maybe she had a cold. Maybe she sat too long by the brook, he said. If Violet is very sick, she ought to go to the hospital, said Jessie. Yes, I know that, said Henry, and we don't want her to go to a hospital if we can help it. We should have to tell her her name. Yes, said Jessie, then Grandfather could find us. The 2 older children sat up with Violet. They put cold water on her head, but after dark Violet shook all over, and Jessie was frightened. She covered Violet all over with pine needles, but still she shook. They could not get her warm. I'm going to get Dr. Moore, said Henry. I'm afraid Violet is very sick. Then Henry started to run. He ran even faster than he had run in the race. Down the hill into town he ran until he came to Dr. Moore's house. "Please come," he cried. "Violet is very sick." The doctor said, "Come and get into my car." He did not ask Henry which way to go, but the car went straight up the road. When they came to the woods, he said to Henry, "Stay here in the car." He ran alone up the hill to the boxcar. It seemed like magic that he knew where to go. When Dr. Moore came back, he was carrying Violet in his arms. Jessie and Benny and Watch came too. They all got into the car. "Are you going to take her to a hospital?" said Henry. "No," said Dr. Moore. "I'm taking her to my house." When they stopped at last, Dr. Moore carried Violet into the house and said to his mother, "Violet is very sick. We must put her to bed." Mrs. Moore hurried around, opening beds and bringing pillows, and Mary came from the kitchen with hot water bottles. After a while, Violet began to get warm. Then Mrs. Moore came to get the other children. "You must stay here all night," she said. She gave Henry and Benny a big bed, and Jessie slept in the little one. But Violet was so sick that the doctor did not go to bed all night. He would not leave her. He sat by her side until 10 o'clock in the morning. Before 10 o'clock, a man came to see the doctor. Mary told him he could wait. So he sat down in the living room. Soon Benny came in. "Where is the doctor?" asked the man crossly. "He is up at Violet's room," answered Benny. "This means $5,000 to him if he will come down," said the man. "Oh, he can't come now," said Benny. "What do you mean, boy?" asked the man. "What is he doing?" "He's taking care of my sister Violet," said Benny. "She is sick." "And you mean he wouldn't leave her even if I gave him $5,000? asked the man. "Yes," answered Benny. "That's what I mean." The man said, "You see, I've lost a little boy, and I think the doctor knows where he is. My little boy is just about as old as you are." "Well, if you don't find him, maybe you can have me," remarked Benny. "I like you." "You do?" cried the man. "Come and get up on my lap." Benny climbed into the man's lap. "Have you got a dog?" he asked. "No," said the man. "He is dead now, but you can see him in my watch. Here he is." Benny looked at the dog. "He looks like a very good dog," he said. "I have a dog. His name is Watch." Just then Watch came in with Dr. Moore. "Good morning," said Dr. Moore. "Benny, you can go play with Watch." Benny ran out, and the man said, "Dr. Moore, where are my grandchildren?" "That little boy is one of them," said Dr. Moore quietly. "That beautiful little boy?" said the man. "Yes," said Dr. Moore. "They are all good children, but they are afraid of you. They are afraid you will find them." "How do you know that?" asked the man. "They have changed their names," said the doctor. He looked at the man in a queer way. "The big boy changed his name on field day. You saw him then." "I saw him? What did he change his name to?" asked the man. "Henry James," said the doctor. "The running boy?" cried the man. "The boy who won the free-for-all? I like that boy. So I'm his grandfather." That's the end of the chapter. Now the grandfather has found the kids, and they were worried about that. I wonder why. Hope they'll be okay, but we won't find out until next time. Chapter 12, James Henry and Henry James. Almost the last chapter. But it's the last story for tonight. Ready to say goodbye? It's okay. When we say goodbye, we just get to say hello later. So, hold up your hands and practice waving. How's that for a wave? Maybe this. Maybe this. Maybe this. Stick out your hand as a fist. And then stick out your pointy finger and your pinky finger and your thumb finger. And this means I love you. Ready? I love you. Goodbye. I love you. Goodbye. I love you. I love you. I love you. Goodbye. Bye. I will see you next time.